Hello, Internet, and hello, Calin. Welcome back, everyone. Okay, so this is part four of Kalin's form review saga. So last time he sent me some videos with some excellent questions. We tuned up the one leg stuff, working on not having this horizontal hip rotation, but committing to having the spine and the rear leg on a tilted hyzer plane, which causes a lifted hip and a dropped hip. So committing to that, it just makes the force go down into the brace better in a way that causes more balance. So what Caleb was doing was he was spinning past the brace, and that was causing the leg to bow out, which was causing some issues with the knee, and just generally leaking power so that the force is going out your front leg instead of up your spine and into your throwing arm. So that was a big one. What was the other thing? It's just a one leg tune up, and I totally forget. Let me go check. The other thing was getting the bone stack to work in the front leg. So, like, super related, the bone stack is not working because the hips are too horizontal, which is causing over rotation, which is messing up the bone stack. So, we went over both of those things, how to fix those things. Calin has fixed those things kind of before I even got him that video. He had just done it. That's how quick he is. So, that's very uncommon. I've worked with two, maybe three people that can learn that quickly, and those are the people that are gonna be playing professional divisions, like full stop, because they just learn so quick and they have they're infinitely coachable. Really, is the first thing, and two, they have good genetics and good athleticism, and they can just do it. So you say like, "Hey, move your knee here," and they're like, "Cool, got it." Tomorrow they're rated 1,000. Good for you. I'm not. I don't even compete, but anyways, okay. So what Caleb said was, oh yeah, this is really interesting. So, yellow flag situation. This is a safety issue. So pay attention. Knee safety, very important. That's the thing you are most likely to screw up in disc golf is your front knee. So Calin is. Did I say Caleb once already? I'm so sorry. Calin. Don't know why I struggle with that. Okay, so I'm just gonna read what he said before I get more spastic. Okay, so I know I'm supposed to start with the one leg, but I always like to experiment, and I wanted to see if I could collect the things you'd said in the new YouTube video and put them into a dynamic throw just to see. I do know curiosity is a good thing. Just see what happens. No idea what you'll think of this, but here's how my dynamic throw turned out after watching your second YouTube video, and it's really good. It's really good. So there's a video. I'll show you that. And then he says kind of a wild follow through. There's another yellowish flag. I'm not sure that my plant was aligned still though. It was. It's perfect. Not sure. That's up to you to judge from the footage because I'm still lost on that some. Yeah, so the body is doing it, but we don't have the academic understanding of what's happening yet. So that's fine. That's a great place to be. But I think I understand maybe, he says. Definitely a different result with a throw when I put different objectives in my mind. Okay, that's cool. So that's part of the infinitely coachable thing. Okay, so I'll pull that video up. But first, I want to tell a little story about what I think happened. I am not in Tennessee for some stupid reason. If I were, I could do this in person with Calin, and that would be a lot better for everyone involved. But this way, it gets documented, so maybe that's better for you, internet. Okay, so I'll pull that video up, and then I will tell the story of Caleb's knee stuff. So after sending me this video, me and Calin talked. Am I saying? I can't remember if I'm saying Caleb or Calin. Calin. N. Okay. Hopefully that's the last time I screw that up. Or maybe I'm not screwing it up. I don't even know. Either way, I apologize. So what he was dealing with was after throwing this way, which In my defense, Your Honor, Calin went beyond the regular scheduled programming and said he wanted to just try it at full power and see how it works. He is a reasonably young, very athletic dude, and he can make his own decisions. That's fine, but I wouldn't recommend that. So what happened is he did a little bit, probably too many reps at too close to full speed. Yeah, so too high volume, too high a power, and he ran into some pain in like the hamstring area. So let me go over why I think that happened, and then go over how we can avoid that in the future, both for Calin and for internet. So what Calin was doing before is he had too much hip rotation, and that was causing the leg to bow sideways. So that had caused some minor knee pain issues in the past that he dealt with, and it was okay. That or something similar to that started to come back doing these full power throws with a new mechanic. So what I think he was doing is now he's getting his bone stack to work really well, and then instead of the hip going this way slowly and relatively controlled, sure, maybe it causes some pain somewhere, but he was adapted to that because he had been throwing that way. Now when he gets the heel forward and gets the leg to stay on plane, that pop, if you're doing that aggressively, that is a hamstring stretch. That is how you do a hamstring stretch, is you send your knee and your hip back, and you feel the tension there. So I would assume what happened is that muscle got popped into extension too many times too hard, and it said, hey, that's too much, slow down, don't do that. So I encouraged him to take a couple of days off, rest it, make sure that it gets better, and we didn't actually do any damage. I suspect it's fine, young athletic dude. But there's a very important lesson there. If this applies very much to Calin, who is already throwing more than 500 feet. That is elite level distance, full stop. That is a very athletic maneuver. If you're doing something incorrectly, your body is going to let you know about it. And we want to be really careful of that. If you are younger than me, so if you're under 40, and if you're throwing somewhere ballpark around 300 feet, you probably don't have a ton to worry about. You're probably not putting so much force into the system at that power level that you're likely to damage something. Once you get better than me, 50, 60, 70 years old, then you want to make sure that you're absolutely up to speed on your knee safety and any other joints that might be an issue for you. And so anytime you're pressing beyond your absolutely green light safety zone, like it's okay to be here even if you mess up, you're not going to hurt anything. That's kind of where we want to operate at a casual level. Once we start pushing beyond that casual level, which Calin is definitely well beyond by like 200 feet, 250 feet at this point, then we need to look at this like, okay, you are an athlete, full stop. There is potential for injury because you are putting a ton of dynamic force into a dynamic system. And if you're not keenly aware of everything staying in balance and calibrated and strong and supported, then there's potential for injury. So in that case, I think the best mentality to adopt, like a best practices type of thing, is we're going to look at any form change as weightlifting. So if you're benching, if you're squatting, more applicable, if you're squatting 400 pounds, you're not just going to say, okay, I'm going to try 500. You're going to go, I don't know what an appropriate increment would be, but probably like 5 or 10 pounds. You're going to go 400, 405, 410, and you're going to build up slowly, because then when you get to something that's a max for you, you're going to hit a spot where you're like, okay, that was pushing it. So I'm going to drop back down, do more reps at 405, and then when that feels good and easy, then I'm going to go up to 410. So it's exactly the same with this new mechanic here that's going to use a muscle in a different way than you're used to. So our bodies need time to adapt. Our muscles need time to adapt. Our tendons need time to adapt. Our ligaments need a very long time to adapt. There's less blood supply, so they don't kick up into higher gear faster. So anytime you're making a big change, it's really best to take it slow. And that's why I like have people spend a, frankly kind of annoying time on the one legs to make sure that they have the mechanic sound, and then move it to, so it's a progression. We're here, this is 400 pounds, and then we're here, this is 405 pounds, and then we're here, this is 410 pounds, and then we're here, 415, and then maybe we try 425 or 430. But we don't go straight to 430, and we don't do 430 3 sets of 10. We do it once or twice, and then we stop and we check in, see how everything's going, and then we maybe do a couple more. So you want to think about it. Another good like mental model is a pitch count. If you're familiar with baseball stuff at all, like baseball pitchers are insane. They're like, here, let's put 5 million pounds of force on this tiny little muscle in my rotator cuff and do that for a living. Good idea. If you're really careful about it, sure. But especially with young pitchers, they have them on really strict pitch counts. I don't know what that number is. I think it's somewhere like ballpark 30. So you wouldn't want to do 200 reps full power because you're going to blow your arm out. But if you can do a lower volume or a lower intensity, then it's much safer. So you're still getting load on the muscle, but you're not going to overdo it. So I think that's what Calin did accidentally, is just put too much force too many times into a muscle group that wasn't used to taking that force. So we're going to back off for a few days. We're going to let it recover, and then we're going to come back at it with a more considered, a little bit slower approach. So we're going to take note of how many reps he did that caused a problem. We're going to cut that in half or a third, and we're going to not operate at that close to full power. We're going to lower the power level. We're going to lower the repetitions, and we're going to build up capacity in that new motor pattern. So we're stressing that muscle, but we're not overstressing that muscle. Okay, yellow flag down. Hopefully you understand all of that now. There are 2 other videos on the channel about knee safety, which I would recommend going and watching if you have any concern at all that you are pushing out of the casual green light, I can do whatever I want and I'm not going to get hurt mode. If you have any inkling of suspicion that you are moving beyond that, please go watch the knee safety videos. Also, if you ever have had any knee pain from disc golf, go watch those, even if you're only throwing 200, 250 feet, even if you're throwing 170 feet, don't care. Go watch those. They will help prevent injury. That is the most important thing I can do. You want to throw farther? Great. The best way to throw farther is to not get hurt. So please go check those out if you are at all interested. Moving on to Calin. Okay, so here's his nicely edited clip of his throw. So here he's made X step. He also made a really good change to his off arm here. If you're following along, off arm looks a lot better. He's in a much better position here to harness, gather some energy in that arm and shoot it down where it's going. So that's all I'll say about that. Good change. Calin, haven't mentioned that to you yet, but that looks awesome. But what we're primarily worried about here is the front leg, and then later the back leg. So let's do it. And Calin put some lines in here showing where the front leg is. So we've got already toe down. Toe is good. Heel is further forward than the toe. Perfect. Toe down. Shifting forward, driving the heel down. Heel gets down. Boom. And then here's Calin's line. So he's just keeping track of where the front of his kneecap is and where the front of his hip is. We're going to make sure that those don't drift too far forward. So we have a bone stack. We have a coach who can't draw with this program. We have a bone stack intact. We have Calin's marker lines there. And back foot just de-weighted. Still at like not peak reach back, but we're still reaching back. That's good. That leg is locked in place. That is exactly what we want to see. Here, the toe starts to lift up. The weight shifted into the heel. Bone stack still intact. Moving towards release. So the toe releases well before the release actually happens. That weirds my head out, but all the pros do that too, so it's got to be right. You need that pressure valve of the toe to start allowing the leg to rotate. So this is like, as far as the front leg is concerned, this is kind of follow through from the leg's viewpoint. Like, we didn't even get to the hit yet, but the leg is now following. It's not leading anymore. So that leg is locked in, and like, ground contact, hips. We did it. That is what creates an aggressive front hip clear, which is what creates elite level distance in terms of hip torque. So, pause the video here. Think about what you've seen. Look at the answer is in this still. What's the next thing we're going to work on? What's the issue here? Pause the video, answer, come back. Okay, you're back. This is the issue. This is why Calin said it feels like there's a little bit of a wild follow through. Because all of this weight that was back here a second ago, less than a second ago, a quarter of a second ago, that's all driving forward. Where's that going to go? It's going to go into a wild follow through. So Calin already knew what was up, but now we're going to go over how to fix it. So, amazing quick work with the front leg. I'll make sure this is true. Yeah, I have never seen anyone fix that issue that quickly. So, MPO, here we come. I'm going to start from the beginning. So now we are into 3 rails territory. Which, I mean, it's kind of complicated, but it's not that bad. So that last little bit from here, knee is there. Knee is here. Knee is here. And then it's going straight past the front knee. Okay, so basically the knee is being sent at and past, the rear knee is being sent at and past the front knee. And we actually want it to go behind. So real quick stick figure version. So this camera is behind the T-pad. So the T-pad is here. And our human has their brace leg here. And just like the one leg, we want that shape. We want the back leg to be here, back foot to be here, back knee to be here. And we want it to bounce off of this position before it comes around and swings through in the follow through. What that does is, instead of this weight blowing past the brace and causing too much energy to be in the follow through, energy that's in the follow through can't possibly go into the disc, because the last time we can get energy in the disc is the last time we're touching it. When it rips out, then any energy still here in the follow through is wasted. Essentially, that's maybe a little bit of a not too statement, but energy can only be imparted to the disc while it's in our hand. And then we don't want to have a ton of motion and energy in our body after the release, because we want to project all the energy into the release. So this situation allows that to happen better. So let's go over that. I think the video I did on that recently is actually pretty good. So I'm going to go quickly here and suggest that you go watch that one. If I remember things, I will put a link. I'll write it down so I can remember it. Link 3 rails video. So I'll probably just put that as the card for the finishing thing for this video, so you can just click right on that one and go watch it. While we're doing things like that, go check out the Patreon. If you like this style of coaching, this is what I like better. Like, I love doing $50 reviews for people and getting you 20 minutes and then giving you another 10 minutes and doing a check-in and just having you on the Discord and answering your questions. but this is more fulfilling to me because I get to spend more time with people. I get to know people better. I get to communicate more, and you get to check in more often, and we make sure that you're making progress. So this is what I like doing more. So the $100 tier and the new more than $100 tier that I'm going to open up today are, that's what I would really encourage people to go check out if you like this type of coaching and want to work on your throw. Okay, so where were we? 3 rails. So the simplest way to explain it, and again I'm going to go quick because you can watch that video. Basically, what Calin is doing here is he is shifting his weight at his front foot. So the momentum in this rear leg is going at the front leg and past it, which means there's energy here and it spins around too much. That can work. If your timing is perfect, you can throw while you're passing your brace. Nick Crush does that a little bit, not to this extent, but he makes it work. That works, in my understanding, because of exceptional athleticism. Nick is a very strong, very capable, very athletic dude, and he has really good lumbar spine torque to keep this moving fast. He has really good elbow drive to get that moving quick, and he's probably throwing some tricep in there. So he can make this assembly and this assembly and this assembly go fast enough that even while this is passing, he can still get a good kinematic sequence. Even though this is at light speed, his rocket boosted canoe is moving forward, and he has an arm cannon that can fire fast enough to not get stuck behind the rocket boosted canoe, if that nonsensical analogy makes any sense to you. That requires absolutely exceptional athleticism in the upper body. I don't have that. I can't throw that way. Deep pocket doesn't work for me. I could get better at it, but it's fighting my body's natural tendencies. The way that works better for me, and I think the way that would get most players who aren't at the level of athleticism of guys like Nick Crush and Blitz, I think there's a more mechanically focused way that's more about building this frame and getting the whip to work and not just powering your arm through. That's not at all to discredit what those guys are doing. There's a very high degree of nuance to the timing, and I think most of us normal mortal humans don't have the fast twitch musculature to get to the speeds that they're getting their arms to. So we've got to use a more holistic, more whole body thing where you're using every piece of your body efficiently in terms of it creating structure. Not that they're not doing that, it's just a little bit different. So when I shift my weight at my front foot, everything just goes past my front, or worse, gets jammed up behind the front, and then I have to pop off a bunch. Kalen's not doing that. He's decided subconsciously that passing is better, and he's still doing a really good job containing the front hip, so it's going to work. But all that energy of the knee blasting past the brace isn't going to get redirected by the brace into making the arm faster. So that's the structure thing that I'm talking about. The way that we change that is we move to a 3 rails theory. So what Calin is doing currently is he has one rail. There's one rail that both feet are on and the center of gravity is on, and they go this way, and then he's getting some of a hip clear now, so there's room for this leg to go past, but that energy is not going to go into the brace. It's not going to get redirected into hip torque, so it's not going to add power to the arm. The way that we fix that is we move to a 1, 2, 3 rails theory. So this is not perfect. There's going to be some nuance in how each individual player does it. You don't necessarily have to have your feet move exactly forward the whole time. You might still have some offset in your last step going into your plant. But the key point is, say you end up here arbitrarily for your last step, you want to keep your hips moving on a center rail. So they're going to go behind your front foot such that you feel out of balance for an instant here, and you have to catch yourself by moving your rear leg there. That is the key point. When you do your throwing motion, your rear leg should drift here. You should notice some similarity between this and this. It's the same shape, Translated, I'm just going to take the whole thing and spin it this way, and then both of my feet are on the ground. Instead of being stacked on this foot and having my rear foot up, I have a triangle again. So in a dynamic throw, this rear leg is going to be floating, but I'm not in balance here. The only reason that I don't fall over is momentum bounces off of this and spins me around up to Drew Gibson mode where I'm doing one of these. So the key is 3 rails and having your weight shift go behind your front foot, not at your front foot, because then your knee goes past your brace, sending your weight shift behind your front foot, and that's what sets you up for a hip clear. Then this foot follows through. Then all of that momentum from your rear leg goes into your brace and can be redirected into the arm. So that maximizes hip torque in terms of your brace. And that's what translates power from the rear hip and power from the front hip into rotation, which can be turned into rotational speed, which comes out your shoulders and your elbow and your arm and your disc. Is that all you need? I think that's all you need. Calin, of course, asked me questions if any of this is not super clear, but if you continue to go at the rate you're going, you will send me a video in about 5 minutes of you doing that perfectly. No pressure. Just the whole internet is watching. No, but I have absolute faith that you'll get it. If you don't understand the directions super clearly, there's a link to the video. You can watch that. You can, of course, type questions at me too. Yeah, so I think that's it. The other theory piece to the rear leg is kinematic sequence stuff. So Blitz and Nick Crush, their kinematic sequence works. They throw 500 plus feet easily. So it's working. There's no one can say it's wrong. People could say it might work better if you did it this way. And then those guys have a choice. Do they want to entertain that possibility or not? Either way is totally fine. That's what they're doing is working. I don't really think they need to change a lot. But what this method that I'm focusing on accomplishes with, I believe, a wider margin of success than what those guys are doing. The bracing and passing thing requires a very high degree of calibration to arm speed to getting to a good hit point. The way I'm doing it, I think, is more accessible to a broader range of people. That's why I focus on it, because that's the way that I had to learn how to throw more than 400 feet. And it was the only way that I could throw more than 400 feet. So the last thing to understand is why this leg position matters. If the knee blows through, then the hips kind of just keep going. If you want to really nerd out, look up kinematic sequence, specifically in ball golfing. I do have a video on the channel about that. I'll link to that one in the description as well. But basically, you're graphing rotational speed of the hips versus the shoulders versus the hands versus the club head. And that graph goes peak, 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 peak. It doesn't go, your hips keep going infinitely faster and faster and faster. Your hips only have a limited range of motion. So they're going to go, and then at some point they're going to stop going. And it turns out that stopping is what allows, so the hips starting to slow down is what allows the shoulders to start to speed up. And then the shoulders starting to slow down is what makes the elbow start to speed up. And then the elbow starting to slow down is what makes the hand start to speed up. So you get this peak, 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 peak thing going on, and that's the kinematic sequence. So if your hips don't ever stop slowing down, it tightens up the margin of success for that kinematic sequence working. Your shoulders and your elbow and your hand have to go even faster on top of fast-moving hips that don't start to slow down in order to get the whip effect. Kinematic sequence is the whip effect. A whip is exactly the same. It rolls out, the big parts have to start slowing down so that the momentum gets pressed up into the smaller parts, and the smaller parts go faster. Because there's momentum in mass, that's a large mass. Mass gets smaller, momentum can't go away. So it turns into more acceleration. Then there's more acceleration in the mass gets smaller again. And that's what causes the insane acceleration. That's how you get a disc golf disc to go more than 550 feet. You have to be using that whip mechanic. And I think this is the simplest, most repeatable way to start accessing it is to build your kinematic sequence from the ground level up. So when you're here in a one leg, your hip has some range, some space where it can go. And then when it gets here, it has to start slowing down because in order to go forward more, it has to start pulling the leg with it. So it has that acceleration and then deceleration curve built into it, and it's automated. Our supercomputer it's great, does a lot of really good things, keeps our knee safe, but it's not quick enough to intentionally start slowing down that rear side. There is still some debate about this in ball golf land that there are some folks that think that kinematic sequence, the starting to stop part, is mechanically and intentionally controlled by muscle. I'm not in that camp. I think it needs to be automated in order to be repeatable. That's a whole separate discussion. But if the one leg position starts to build that in, I have room for my hip to accelerate, and then it's going to start slowing down at some point by itself. That's baked into my mechanical position. If I have my rear leg here, if I get too strung out on my rear hip and I'm throwing this way, this hip can't move. So I can't accelerate my hip at all. I'm just throwing off on my back leg, and then my kinematic sequence is going to suffer because I don't get any power from my hips. I can get power from driving off of my rear leg. That's what Blitz does in his standstills, which is correct for a standstill because he doesn't have walkout momentum. He can't rely on the front leg bracing. Again, him being a superhuman athlete, he still gets his front hip pop to work. Look at his twirly bird drill. His front leg in that drill is amazing. He's just got it figured out. He has super good micro timing. That's why it works. Most people can't figure that out nearly as quick as he did. Eventually, if they grind on it forever with good instruction, good coaching, good self-awareness, they can make some significant progress. But I feel like that's a pretty tight window to fit in. And the 70-year-old guy that I coach at Park isn't going to do that. So he needs something else. Not saying that Blitz would, have that guy do Twirly Bird for a million years, because he would recognize that's not efficient and he would take a different route. But I have a hard time fitting people into that mold because I think only the most elite athletes fit well into that mold. Can other people learn from it? Absolutely. But, is why we have different coaches, so we can have different segments of the population find the coach that works best for them. Okay, I'm rambling, so I'm going to stop. 33 minutes. But check out the 3 Rails video. Calin, you are doing awesome, sir. Thank you so much for your help, and I hope you're really getting something out of it. And I think this is kind of the last big piece before we're working on little stuff and just generally refining the whole form. So take your time, do what you can, go slow, rest that hamstring for a couple days, if at all possible. I know that'll be hard, but try to work on putting for a while. Just take it easy, and then we can bounce ideas back and forth about the 3 rail stuff and how you can work on that. Yeah, let's go from there. All right, internet, see you later. Go check out the Patreon. I will go put on those higher level tiers tonight. And Calin, thanks so much. You're doing great. See ya.